right, so thank you. So I will try to be somewhat brief in this, but also thorough. Um, so envision Chesterfield, uh, an overview of comprehensive planning in general. So the city of Chesterfield is authorized to do comprehensive planning by the state of Missouri. It is a power that is expressly granted to cities to go through and create a comprehensive plan. So Chapter 89 says that the commission may make and adopt a city plan for the physical development of the municipality. So at its core, that's what we're going through the process tonight. We've got a current comprehensive plan. We've been working for the last 21 months in reviewing that and making modifications and going through it, and that's what we're here tonight to do. But it is expressly authorized by state statute for the commission to create this plan. In creation and adoption of a plan or any amendment thereto, state statute requires that we are required to hold at least one public hearing. So tonight we are holding our formal public hearing. As someone who advocates for public engagement, I always find it interesting that we're required to have one public hearing, but then I'm going to say the public hearing is not the engagement in the process. The public hearing is one piece in time of the engagement in this process. So Chair Hansen, to your points earlier about the number of people that have been involved, the number of residents, the number of people that you've talked to walking down the street, all of those all of that information, all of those feelings, all of those viewpoints get wrapped up into this process. That process formally kicked off in January of 2019. City Council directed the Planning Commission with the assistance of a planning consultant and city staff to look into an update of the comprehensive plan. We anticipated initially, we said we were anticipating an 18 to 24 month process. So again, I think we are right at probably 21 months, probably almost to the day at this point. And I think given everything that's gone on in the world over the last 6 months, the fact that we are still on schedule and that we have not sacrificed the robustness of the process is a testament to the dedication both of the residents and the Planning Commission. So what is a comprehensive plan? So we've used the term, it's a long-range policy document. It is a plan for the physical development of the city. I think Chair Hansen, in your introduction, I think you summarized it very well when you said it's a vision. It lays out what we want to be as a community. What it is not sometimes is just important as what it is. It is not our zoning regulations. It does not say, when you're located in this area, your building has to be X stories in height and, open space of exactly this percent. It's more visionary than that. This is the basis that we create those regulations. It is what we calibrate those regulations to. So when we look in 5 years and we want to say, how are we doing implementing this plan? One of the things we're going to look at is developments that have happened in this time period, and are those developments resulting in the vision that we had originally identified in this? If not, the answer is we may need to review our regulations to make sure that our regulations result in the development that we're looking for. Using the plan. So there's a high-level user's guide that's included in the plan, but I thought it fair mentioning a little bit that, again, this plan resulted from the inputs from residents and property owners. Ideas and concepts were the direct result of those interactions. Implementation of the plan, it's not an overnight plan. The city, in fact, is not going to build the majority of this plan. This plan is a policy document, and it will take the buy-in and investment of the private sector, of private property owners, to realize any and all of the visions in this document. So the process. Again, I keep harping on it, and I harp on it to some extent because when we were going through the process with City Council to get the funding for this, the engagement portion of this was critical from City Council. They really challenged staff and the Planning Commission to make sure that this was not, staff's plan. It was not the chair's plan. It was the plan of the community. So in doing that, we really challenged ourselves to find ways of how can we get as many people involved as possible. Sometimes it may be shocking, but it's hard to get people to show up for a policy document at City Hall. So we started off the process. We did what we called policymaker interviews. So our consultants met with each of the city council members and the planning commissioners one-on-one, just talk to them. What are their thoughts? What are their issues? What do they love? What do they hate? Just getting to know them, getting to know their feelings, given that those individuals are either elected or appointed direct residents of the city that represent to some degree our public. In the case of the elected officials, the direct representatives of the public. From there, we had a robust, and it evolved throughout time, and it changed what we were doing, but we held 5 open houses. We held 8 planning commission meetings that were open to the public. We had 7 topic-specific workshops. We did this weird thing that sounded really wonderful at the time called open studio time, that I think by the time we were done with it, we were all very tired, where I think the third picture from the second from the bottom on the left-hand side of the screen shows where we had taken the multi-purpose room at City Hall and we had just opened it up. Our consultants were in there and the public was free to come and go. We were there 7:30 in the morning and we would leave at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. We were there Monday through Friday. We were there Saturday. We were there Sunday. Sunday was, I think we kept it to an 8-hour day. And then we were there the next week. So it was a really different way that brought people in. We had large property owners, we had residents, we had everyone sitting in the room. Everyone had transparent access to be involved, to watch the process, to give their input into that process. I even remember one night sitting there at 9:30 and there was a debriefing at the end of the night. And I think one of our council members was sitting there just enjoying and watching, and it was a very open process. So I thought that was a really creative way that allowed people, if they have a work schedule, but they could still come in. From there, we had our on the table discussions. So again, knowing that people don't like to come to City Hall all the time. Sometimes they have better things to do. Sometimes they don't know about it. Sometimes they're intimidated. So we broke off. I know we had 23 confirmed. I've heard rumors that there were more than that, but I know we had 23 on the table meetings with over 300 individuals. Staff was leading some of those. Planning commissioners were leading some of those. Elected officials were leading some of those. Residents who were interested were leading some of those. And it was just a small breakout. On the bottom of the screen, we had a little host toolkit that we passed out as a, if you need help getting it started. But it wasn't a process that was dictated by the city. It was a process saying, we want your information in whatever form, in whatever fashion you'll give it to us. And we got a lot of people involved through that process. Finally, we had a dedicated project website. I'm somewhat skeptical of project websites, but I was happy to see that website had over 13,000 unique page visits. When we put out the draft plan in March of this year, March of 2020, there were 1,900 visits of that web page, and the draft plan itself was downloaded 1,500 times. So again, a way of just trying to push out the information, being transparent with the process, making sure people knew what was in the plan. And I think we've been incredibly successful in that endeavor. So at the core of it, all of that public engagement kind of gets wrapped up into this idea, and I'll try to have this be a repeating theme throughout this presentation. And hopefully as you read through the plan, you see those themes over and over and over again. And that theme is, what did we hear? What did we hear from people that influenced this plan? And so there's a graphic in the plan. It's on the screen right now. And it just talks about what were some of those one or two words that people used to describe the city of Chesterfield. We heard, we love all things green. We love green. I think we've heard that here tonight several times. We continuously hear our residents say they love the green space, that it is part of the identity of the city of Chesterfield. We've heard discussion about connectivity, particularly walking and biking and driving that connectivity and making those other connections that sometimes there's a desire that we don't want the neighborhoods connected for vehicle traffic, but we still want neighborhoods connected through these other modes. We want to be able to get from our neighborhoods to these shopping areas that they're neighborhood centers. They're there for people. They're there to serve the area. We heard people talk about a sense of place. I think most people that live in Chesterfield are proud of the fact that they live in Chesterfield. They like the city of Chesterfield, and they want the city to have that sense of place. We heard people talk about what that sense of place was. A lot of that conversation revolved and rotated back to discussions of the Chesterfield Mall. So we heard people say we need to reimagine the mall site. We heard all sorts of feelings. We heard on both sides of what should happen with all sides on what should happen with the mall. And I think what I heard more and more coming out of it was some sense of a vibrant downtown that has that sense of place that accommodates all of those modes. So it really, this downtown concept really emerged, that all of these things that people love and embrace, the safe communities, the vibrancy, the sense of place, the connectivity, those really all need to come together at that gathering place of what that town center concept is going to evolve into. The structure of the plan itself. So I think the Planning Commission, I think as we were going through this plan, I think we had a lot of discussion with the commission about what should the structure of this plan be? What are the important parts of it? How do we make sure it says enough, but it doesn't say so much that no one wants to look at it? So where we're at is the plan is broken down into 7 chapters. I think Mike Knight is on this call. He's available for questions to help me out here as we get through the process. But I think he presented it at the last meeting that really when you look at these 7 chapters, you can break it down into 4 separate areas. So those first 4 chapters, the introduction, the process, about Chesterfield and a new way forward, I really like the description of that's the who, what, where, and why of the plan. Sets the context of what, who Chesterfield is, what's going on in Chesterfield right now that is setting the stage for this plan. What is the process we went through? I know this is all fresh in our mind right now, and we're talking about the engagement process and the number of residents who have been involved. In 5 years, someone may pick up this plan and not know that. So it's a documentation of the process. I'll walk through each of these chapters really quickly and just kind of talk about what's in them and what they are. So again, chapters 1 through 4. So chapter 1 is the introduction of the plan. So this talks about, who Chesterfield is, where we are. We're a city of almost 50,000 people. We were incorporated in 1988. We're the 14th largest city in the state of Missouri. We're located in western St. Louis County, and it just sets that context of who we are within the St. Louis region, within St. Louis County, within the region, within the state, and within the country. Where do we sit and who are we? Chapter 2 is, again, just a high-level capture of what is this planning process. So again, we had our Plan-a-Palooza, we had our online, we had our workshops, we had all of these elements, and that's what influences plan. Chapter 3 talks about Chesterfield. Again, providing some context.
You know what? I'm just, okay, go ahead. She muted herself. It was Kelly.
Yeah. Oh, bear with me for just a second. Sorry about that. So the chapter 3 about Chesterfield it establishes a really high level timeline of events of who we are and where we are in 2020 that kind of sets the stage for why we're doing what we're doing. Chapter 4, a new way forward. So through this process, we've had these higher level discussions. We've talked about how millennials are changing the economy, how there's a really strong push for healthy living and all of the things that healthy living brings, with the desire for more trails and open spaces and recreation opportunities. The idea of how do we use open space as an amenity. So I think our current plan talks about, different structures of open space. Sometimes we have formal open space that's more aesthetic, and this is how do we in certain opportunities use that open space, that it's more than just something we look at. And in other areas, how do we use it as its preservation of those natural features that in and of themselves are that amenity. How do we accommodate the desire for residents who want to age in place? I think one of the things that's been a little bit interesting as we've talked to people and talked with consultants and residents is the features that the millennials are looking for and the features that the people that are downsizing and looking to age in place, they align. They're very similar. And not only that, they really align with these other goals of what we're talking about with healthy living, with active areas outside, with open space being as an amenity. And then just kind of a final bullet point, online shopping. We're talking about it all the time. The trends have been clear over the last few years, and over the last 6 months, I think we've seen a sharp push towards that way, and it's going to have an impact on the city long term. All of that leads us into and sets the context for Chesterfield's vision. So one line of the plan says that the Chesterfield community envisions a city in 2040 that embraces change, paving the way for improvements that enhance the quality of life for existing and future residents. So again, the vision revolves around that quality of life for the people that live here. So when we talk about this vision chapter, so a lot of this is where the Planning Commission really interacts with this plan on a bi-weekly basis, every time we meet. So this is where we find the future land use plan. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time going through this because I think some of the structure of this is important to how it's changed. So what the chapter 5 does is it creates 3 different character areas in the city for our future land use plan. There's our open space character area, there's our suburban character area, and there's our urban character area. So on the screen right now, you see the open space character area. There are 2 land use designations that make that up. The first is parks and recreation. So that's the darker green color. And then the lighter green color are our conservation. The most impactful change that's from our current plan to this plan, as far as this image goes, is the conservation area. We heard over and over how people associate their pride and their feeling and their sense of community with this green network, with this sense of green, with these natural areas. And the Planning Commission said, when they looked at the map, the first draft, they said, that sense of green is not coming through. We need to highlight that sense of green, and it needs to be a part of it. So they directed staff to go through, and I think Mike Knight tediously went through all of the areas that are platted as common ground and these dedicated open spaces, and you really start to see this spine of preserved areas throughout a lot of the city that really get into our residential areas and create that backbone that we hear so often from our residents that they love. The second character area is the suburban character area. So this one has several land use designations. I think what's important is if you exclude the non-levy protected area, which is the majority on the northwest side of the city that is white, This land use designation captures the vast majority of land within the city of Chesterfield. So this, I'll walk through each of the designations. So our business and office, again, within the suburban character area. These generally run on the north side of I-64 and along 141. This is where we see some of our larger suburban office developments, and in St. Luke's and some of their associated medical offices along 141. Our industrial area, so this is down by the Spirit of St. Louis Air Park. We've got a very large area of business parks, of uses that support the airport, of warehouses, of manufacturing. They're located in this area of the city, very similar to the area where they're at right now. The biggest distinction between our current plan and the proposed plan for you this evening as it pertains to the valley is there's just been a consolidation of land uses. So right now there are probably 8 land uses down in the valley that are all very similar. This plan consolidates them into industrial and regional commercial. So again, this mimics very closely with those industrial areas that we've seen in our current plan. Our mixed residential. So this is, we've changed the terminology slightly from our current plan. So the current plan calls this our multifamily residential designation. And one of the things that we heard throughout the engagement process was, we heard kind of, I'll summarize it in 2 comments of, one, every multifamily project that comes in is a very large and imposing, very big apartment complex. And why isn't there anything else? So when we looked at this category, we said, well, we're talking about multifamily. And when you look at the current plan, it really doesn't paint the fact that there may be a context where not all multifamily is the same. There may be areas where one form of multifamily is different than another. I think the other important part about the multifamily is when you look at the areas that are designated as multifamily, the majority of these are built out, already constructed developments. The second to last, I believe this is the second to last character area in the suburban character, is the neighborhood center. So these are centers that really are meant to, as opposed to the valley where we've got our big box where they're regional draws, these are centers that are meant to support the neighborhoods in the immediate area. So I think what we heard a lot with these is trying to make those neighborhood ties a little bit better without introducing the traffic. So how can we make sure that these centers are accessible by walking, making sure that they've got good facilities, and the plan references that. The only change that you'll see here, so our current plan, again, these are all large, these are all built out. There are 2 new areas of neighborhood center, or 3 new areas, and they all are right on the edges of the urban, what is currently our urban core. So these parcels are all, so we have the parcel on the northeast side here. This is Hilltown Village. We have the parcel along Clarkson, and then we have Shetler. I'm sorry, not Shetler. We have the old Sheridan site. I'm sorry, Baxter and Wild Horse. Thank you. Sorry, at that location. So Baxter and Wild Horse was previously a split designation between multifamily and urban core. The other 2 locations were noted as urban core. When we reviewed it, we said, these aren't urban core properties. These are neighborhood centers that are meant to support the area around them, not the highest and densest use of the area. So I was wrong, that was the third. So this is the second to last land use category, the regional commercial, again, located solely within the Chesterfield Valley, primarily along I-64. So you see Boone's Crossing here, and then the western end of the city with the Boone Bridge over here, where those two commercial nodes are. Very little change from what's out there right now. A lot of promotion of those same characteristics. The final land use designation in our suburban character is our largest by land mass, and that is our suburban neighborhoods. What we heard over and over and over again, and I think it probably, and it pertains to all of those land use categories that we just talked about within the suburban character, but it was really passionate that people liked their neighborhoods. They were not looking for change to their neighborhoods. So when we talk earlier about the what we heard, when we heard that sense of place, those sense of identities, those green networks, I think the residents of Chesterfield clearly expressed they feel like their neighborhoods have that. They're happy with their neighborhoods, and really what they're looking for is they don't want change to their neighborhood. They want to continue to promote the things that they believe have made and continue to make those neighborhoods great. So as you go through the policies in the suburban character, and in particular for the suburban neighborhood, it really focuses on compatibility between density of in the suburban neighborhood, really focusing on single family housing and uniform densities, that we don't look and bounce around and have something that's out of context, that we promote and preserve and protect the housing stock in the neighborhoods that are there. The final character area is the city center. So this is where I talked about with the suburban character area, we really heard a consistent theme throughout of preserve, protect, don't change. Within the city center, we started to get more viewpoints, and there was opportunity for change, and a lot of that was spearheaded by discussions about the mall, and it kind of went out. So I think a little bit of context of where we're at with our current plan and what this plan proposes is important, because this is where we see a lot of change and a lot of distinction. So the image on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the blue color. That is currently what we call the urban core. So it is in our current plan a monolithic designation. There is no distinction, there are no differences, and the policies apply universally throughout. So I think the other public hearing that we had tonight, you heard the planner mention, the plan policies for the urban core are, it's the visual focus, it's the highest density within the city. It is a mix of uses, including office, retail, residential, all of those in their highest density forms. And right now that applies universally across this whole area. As we went through this process, I think there was a consistent theme. So one, you'll see the red areas a little bit more clearly that I was talking about prior. So we have the neighborhood retail down on Clarkson. We have over by Schnucks now, and we have over off of Wild Horse and Baxter. So you'll see, so Wild Horse and Baxter is a split designation with multifamily and urban core. Along Clarkson is urban core, Schnucks urban core. Those have been changed to reflect the purpose of those. And then as we started going through this notion of an urban core, it really evolved into the what we heard of that vibrant downtown, that sense of place. This I think I've heard the term a gathering place, a community space. And essentially, I think as I capture it, it's replacing what the mall was 50 years ago when it was built. When I was young, my parents used to take me to a mall and they dropped me off, and my friends would get dropped off, and that's where we would hang out. We don't have that now as the evolution of retail is changing and malls are dying. But I think there's also an awareness that what that new town center is, that new city center, that new gathering place, it can't have this massive, huge, uncontrolled boundary, that it needs a little bit more definition and a little bit more focus. And that's what this map really shows. So I'll high level, what the plan proposes is a downtown Chesterfield, roughly around the existing Chesterfield Mall. It has an urban transition area, the darker blue around here. So timing wise, it's a little bit interesting, but this is the Wild Horse Village proposal that went through. This is the 100 acres, 77 around the lake on the west side of Chesterfield Parkway by the Y, with the area on the north side, category C of that as well. The other 3 quadrants of the Chesterfield Village, so for reference, City Hall is right here, RGA is right here, this is the Bayer campus. Those got classified as a corporate village. And then the final designation was this light blue over on the far west end. We said, hey, we've got this area it's got a lot of history to it. It's important to the city, this old Chesterfield Road corridor, but it's certainly different than downtown Chesterfield. So how do we accommodate all of those? So I'll go through and I'll hit a little bit more specifically on each one of those. So again, the description of the urban transition shown on the top right-hand corner of the screen. And really what we talked about with this is the idea of there needed to be a connection along the east side that ties this into the mall. These two need to work together. They need to be a seamless development. But over on the west end, we've got existing single-family neighborhoods with a conservation corridor, but it's different, and we wanted to respect that difference across there. And so what we came up with is a transition zone that we're going to move from a more dense area where we're going to propose a downtown location in that area. And we're going to make a seamless transition across the parkway. And as we move west, we're going to continue to transition until we get to the riparian corridor. And then it'll transition out to that suburban character. But it creates that transition that we talk about so frequently with our zoning petitions, with development, of how do we not have the hard lines where things look incompatible. As we were going through the process, we said, one of the issues we have with our current plan is that it's a monolithic, everything applies the same. The other is, what does this look like? If you ask people, what is the urban core, what does the urban core look like? You'll ask 10 people, you'll get 12 different answers somehow. So we had our consultants, when they were here through Planapalooza, they did a visioning exercise. So they came up with graphics of what could this look like? So this is not what does someone have to build, but this is a depiction of what this land use category in the policies, this is what it should look like. These are the ideas that are embraced by the plan. So to that downtown, so very similar discussion. We've just switched orientation slightly. So now we move to the east side of Chesterfield Parkway, I-64 on the north, Clarkson on the kind of southeast, and then the parkway along the other sides. So right now, our current plan says highest density all across the urban core. The proposed plan says, no, we're still going to have a mix of uses in those other areas, but that concentration, that should happen in the downtown, because that's where to result in the vision that the citizens convey to us for that meeting space, for that activity, for that sense of place and that vibrancy. That's where we have to have this concentration of density, but we should also not allow it to go unconstrained and go all over the urban core. So it's a really kind of focus in and put that highest and most dense area onto that downtown area where it helps promote the vision that our residents have expressed. The corporate village, not a whole lot to say on this one other than it's been softened a little bit, but we certainly still have a mix of uses here. And I think that's consistent with what we see. So we've got the Alexander Woods. We've got a single family neighborhood that's redeveloping, I guess, along Narden Drive. We've got large corporate campuses. We've got Pfizer, we've got Bayer, we've got RGA, we've got City Hall. I'll put us in that large corporate campus, I guess. And then on the southeast side, we've got the Mercy campus, which is only partially developed at this point. But then intermixed within here, we've got smaller offices, we've got residential units. So again, we keep a little bit of this mix of uses, but it's not the same density. It's not the highest density area within the city. We reserve that for the downtown area. And then the final area, and then again, the final area along Old Chesterfield Road. I think we have heard for years and years, and we've heard a lot of the property owners along here say, hey, there's something really cool about this area. It's different. It's got a little bit of potential, but we lack a real clear vision of what we can be, of what we should be. And so we said, again, that's not a transition area. That's not a downtown. It's not a corporate village. This area is different. This is our historic Chesterfield, our old Chesterfield, where we're really kind of celebrating and trying to build on maybe something a little bit different. So you'll notice on a site plan that they had done, again, another visioning exercise. So this is not what does it have to be. This is a visual depiction of what it could be, where we look to keep those existing bungalows on the south side of Old Chesterfield Road and build onto that with something that helps support those along the north side. So very long-winded, but I think it's important. That's where we interact with the land use plan all the time with this committee. Chapter 6, I don't want to diminish it because I think there's a lot of important things here, but I'm not going to go nearly as far into depth. This is where we have goals and strategies and objectives throughout. So you're going to see those same set of buzzwords or those trends of what we heard reflected throughout these goals. So we talk about resiliency, and we talk about increasing our community resiliency. How do we do that? And we're protecting open spaces, and we're really focusing, if there's an environmentally sensitive area, let's make sure that that gets preserved as open space. And we're finding ways to support healthy living through there. So we're building trails, and we're providing opportunities for our residents. So all of those same things get continued to be wrapped in. We're promoting, continuing to focus on tree preservation, and always talking about it when projects are coming through. And then on the top right, we start talking about, chapter 5, we talk about the private investment a lot, really, on how does private development impact. So this section gets a little bit into what can the city do to support the development? What kind of investment should we make? So when we're rebuilding our streets, how are we working with our public works department to make sure that those streets that we're rebuilding, or that we're changing, or that we're modifying, that those modifications are done knowing the vision that we're trying to achieve for the city, and that they support each other. Chapter 7, I think this goes back to where we started with Chair Hansen about implementation. So this is, I think it's the shortest chapter, and it basically says the creation and adoption of the plan is not the end. It's the adoption that really moves the plan forward. So how do we implement this? First and foremost, we use it, we talk about it, we pull it out. So every staff report that comes in for a development proposal, there's always a section where we talk about consistency with the comprehensive plan. That we look at it, that we look at as developments come through, that we're looking at the results of when something gets built, and we say, is this consistent with the vision? And if it's not consistent with the vision, what is it in our regulations that's not helping us achieve that vision? So maybe we need to go to the toolbox of zoning and make some changes to that, but we have to be able to define the vision, which is what this plan does, and then we look later to see if the result is achieving that vision, and if not, we can adjust as we move forward.